Public polls show that South Koreans' favorability toward Taiwan sits at around 51 degrees, while roughly 48% of Taiwanese view South Korea in a positive light. But in the ruthless arena of international politics, this emotional solidarity, fueled by K-culture and shared anti-China sentiment, is nothing more than a superficial pretext. In reality, these two nations are fiercely uncomfortable economic rivals, locked in a zero-sum war for global semiconductor supremacy between TSMC and Samsung Electronics. Deep down, Taiwan still harbors the painful trauma of 1992, when Seoul abruptly severed diplomatic ties to embrace Beijing. Should a catastrophic crisis erupt in the Taiwan Strait, these subtle sentiments will carry zero weight. The gears of a real war are driven not by the shallow emotions of the public, but by the cold calculus of national survival and macroeconomic interest. If China launches an invasion of Taiwan, which nations will actually cross the threshold of war? The Center for Strategic and International Studies, or CSIS, conducted 24 rigorous wargame simulations, and the conclusion was undeniable. If Taiwan fights alone, the island will fall to Beijing within weeks. The sole condition to prevent this is immediate, direct military intervention by the United States and its allies. Yet the price of victory is devastating. The wargames project that within just 3 to 4 weeks, the US military would lose 2 aircraft carriers and hundreds of combat aircraft. Consequently, the participation of Japan, Washington's primary ally, becomes an absolute necessity. Because Japanese territory hosting US bases would inevitably become prime targets for Chinese missiles, Tokyo would be forced to cast off its pacifist constitution and deploy the self-defense forces straight into the front line. Where then is South Korea, the world's 6th largest military power? Look at this map. The distance from Camp Humphreys in Pyeongtaek to Taipei is a mere 1,425 kilometers. This is the optimal operational radius for US air power to deploy rapidly without even needing mid-air refueling. In the event of war, Washington will exert immense pressure to draw from its closest and most potent card, the US Forces Korea, or USFK. However, the moment those US assets depart for Taiwan, a massive security vacuum opens just 255 kilometers away from Pyongyang. This is the terrifying reality of a two-front war, the exact reason why South Korea cannot easily commit to Taiwan. Furthermore, look at the distance to the heart of China. Beijing is only 985 kilometers from Pyeongtaek, closer than Taiwan itself. The second a US fighter jet launches from a Korean runway toward the strait, Beijing will categorize South Korea as a hostile launch pad threatening its capital, triggering immediate retaliatory missile strikes on Korean soil. Yet paradoxically, this exact geographical proximity acts as a nightmare for China. The conventional military might amassed by South Korea is a leviathan that Beijing cannot afford to provoke. South Korea possesses an independent, devastating arsenal of long-range ballistic missiles, including the Hyunmoo-5, a missile carrying the world's heaviest conventional warhead, designed specifically to obliterate deeply buried underground bunkers and command structures in Beijing. Simultaneously, Seoul's Sejong the Great-class Aegis destroyers provide a cutting-edge naval shield capable of tracking and intercepting China's vaunted Dongfeng ballistic missiles in real time. For a Chinese military facing a prolonged war of attrition against a US-Japan coalition, opening a second front against a massive military power right at its doorstep would be a lethal mistake. South Korea's overwhelming precision strike capabilities serve as a powerful mechanism of mutual deterrence, forcing Beijing to hesitate before executing a preemptive strike. Ultimately, in this global chess piece, the true mission Washington assigns to Seoul is not the defense of Taipei. It is acting as the immovable northern bulwark, using its sheer military weight to freeze the Sino-Russian North Korean alliance in place, while operating as the primary arsenal of the free world. The fundamental reason South Korea measures its words with extreme caution regarding Taiwan is the daunting shadow of the tightening alignment between Pyongyang, Beijing, and Moscow. If Seoul explicitly commits to military intervention in Taiwan, Russia could retaliate instantly by transferring hyper-advanced military technology, such as nuclear submarine designs or ICBM re-entry data, directly to North Korea. On the economic front, Beijing could easily weaponize its stranglehold over critical raw materials and rare earth supply chains, choking the South Korean economy far more ruthlessly than it did during the THAAD crisis. As a middle power holding a top 10 global economy, South Korea has chosen to align with the West's supply chain restructuring. Yet geographically, it remains trapped on the literal fault line, where continental and maritime empires crash. Maintaining a rock-solid alliance with the US, while avoiding turning China and Russia into permanent active adversaries, is not a sign of weakness or ambiguity. It is a highly calculated, high-stakes strategy of silken survival. We've analyzed the war games and the alliance structures. Yet, every single one of these simulations hinges on one monumental, fatal assumption: that the United States possesses an infinite, overwhelming supply of weaponry to sustain a high-intensity war. Today, macro data reveals that this premise is fundamentally broken. The American arsenal is running dangerously dry. Following the war in Ukraine and intensive recent operations in the Middle East to defend against Iranian drone and missile barrages, the United States has severely depleted its stockpiles of critical interceptors, like Patriot and SM-6 missiles alongside Tomahawk cruise missiles. The bottleneck isn't money, it is time. Due to structural supply chain decay within the defense industrial base, the production lead time for a single long-range precision missile now spans 3 to 4 years. This defense bottleneck has sent shockwaves straight to Taipei. To preserve its own dwindling stocks for domestic and Middle Eastern contingencies, the United States made the unprecedented decision to place a total pause on a $14 billion arms backlog promised to Taiwan. The self-proclaimed arsenal of democracy has effectively admitted to the world that it no longer possesses the physical capacity to fight on two fronts simultaneously. The muted undertones of the recent US-China summit confirm this gridlock. Behind the performative rhetoric over Taiwan, the actual breakthrough achieved by both leaders was not a resolution, but an agreement to manage and stabilize the relationship. Hampered by ammunition shortages and severe inflationary pressures, Washington simply cannot afford an active superpower conflict in the Pacific. Lacking adequate long-range missile stocks, the US would be forced to sail its carrier strike groups into the teeth of China's anti-access area denial envelope, a near-suicidal risk. Beijing, simultaneously wrestling with a severe domestic property crash and economic slowdown, is equally unready to pull the trigger. Both empires have embraced a state of managed instability, buying precious time. If the American security umbrella continues to fray under the weight of empty munitions depots, China may never need to launch a bloody physical amphibious invasion. As skepticism mounts within Taiwan that Washington can actually deliver on its promises, the internal political tide will inevitably shift. If the conviction takes root that the West cannot protect them, Taiwan, out of pure survival, will pivot toward gradual economic and political accommodation with Beijing. This is not the violent subjugation of Hong Kong. It is the quiet Finlandization of Taiwan, where the island voluntarily lowers its shields and declares a state of strategic neutrality. If Taiwan quietly steps out of the Western orbit, the geopolitical levee holding back Chinese power in Northeast Asia collapses overnight. South Korea will find itself facing the raw, unmitigated weight of the Sino-Russian-North Korean bloc without a single buffer zone left. As the geopolitical map gets redrawn, where is smart money migrating? In an era where American industrial capacity is bottlenecked, the free world desperately requires a rapid, high-volume, cost-effective defense factory. The reason South Korean defense giants are capturing massive global market share is not mere salesmanship. It is a macroeconomic necessity. They are the only ones capable of short-circuiting the West's multi-year weapon lead times. Furthermore, confronted by structural demographic decline and shrinking standing armies, Automation and defense robotics are no longer sci-fi. They are the baselines for national survival. This is why specialized vehicles like the Global X Robotics and Artificial Intelligence ETF, ticker BOTZ, are shifting from speculative tech plays into core geopolitical hedges, capturing the very hardware rewriting industrial and military realities. As the Empire's magazines run dry and Taiwan contemplates a quiet pivot, is your portfolio positioned for the great macro realignment? This is the Kairos. Stay sharp, invest with vision, and we will see you at the next briefing.